okay.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing okay. I don't know. I would have liked to have been a little smoother out of the gate with this on my end.
It's a lot of new emails to add in, isn't it?
It is, and I waited for a couple of emails to get back, and I used the wrong email. It's nobody's fault but my own. But all of a sudden, I was like, "Holy smokes! I'm going to be tardy getting this out." And yeah, so.
Well, it's the EC meeting. This is where all things get ironed out, right?
That's what I felt like. And I think everybody, I've had an opportunity to meet with Maya, and I talked a little bit with Jeremy, and I think everybody's excited, and hopefully they're coming in with the understanding that there's some kinks that we got to work out, and that
for sure. I feel like this last year has been like a good lesson about like how tech is challenging but important, and that it's a good
totally
thinking about investing in. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that people feel good.
Yeah. Hey, Chelsea. I don't know if she can hear me.
I can. How are you?
Oh, hanging in.
Yeah.
You know,
is it the
last week of school like a hot mess? That's how it's going.
Totally. Yeah. Like, oh, we got 72 hours to put this thing in the ditch one last time before the
Yeah. I'm like, really? Homework? Small groups? Forget about it. Well, especially because even into last week, I still had a kid doing MAP NWEA testing.
Really?
And I was like, I'm not going to make my kids do extra work.
Wait.
That testing is so stressful in a regular year, and it's so much more stressful online.
Oh, bad.
So I just was like, I'm going to let that go. And then at that point, I was like, really? It's not even a full week of school left, right? Like, because last week was a short week, and then this week's 2 half days. Like, I'm not going to start cracking the whip now, and nothing's going to soak in and stay there for the next 4 months.
Right. Yeah, just a brutal year for the kids all around. And one of Luna's teachers just checked out and hasn't even been there this week. And it's a class that's really challenging for her. So, I mean, I just feel for the kids. I feel like they've had to roll with all of the idiosyncrasies that the adults are introducing into their life.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, if it's hard for grownups, it's got to be extra hard for the kids.
Oh my gosh, I know. And I know that you and I have said this before, but we're not post-traumatic stress because we're not post-trauma. So, I mean, it's just so
keeps on rolling.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to the summer. I don't think we're going to have very high standards for what we're looking for other than a lot of R&R. A lot of rest and relaxation.
Are you saying that you guys are TSD?
What does that mean, Jeremy? Tell us.
You must be in, well, you said you're not in post-traumatic. So you
we're
must
just
be traumatic stress disorder?
Yeah, we're in current traumatic stress disorder.
It's like the bad alternate version of have your cake and eat it too.
Totally.
It's like
that's what we got.
Have your terrible time and just have your terrible time.
Own it. Just own it.
Just gonna own it. Just gonna own it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Maya gets on board here. I had used the wrong email for Maya, but I think that she's got.
Hi, I'm here.
Hey, all right. Sorry, Maya.
So it sounds like in the chat that Maya says that. Maya, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now. Okay. I don't know what was going on, but I could hear before.
Chelsea, can you hear us? Okay.
It might just be
Chelsea and Eddie, did you guys have any trouble getting into the secretary account? I can't hear you. I think you might still be muted, Chelsea. I still can't hear you.
I can't hear also.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Eddie.
I had to hold this up to my mouth. I just have a lot of kids running around behind me, so they're being
That's
loud,
awesome.
and I told them I'm in a meetings, but they're not
So
listening.
every once in a while, one of your grape leaves might be replaced by a kid's head. Is that what's going to happen?
Yep. That's why there's grape leaves behind me.
Is there a chance that they might be carrying a goat when they do it? Because that would be the bomb.
It's the rain, so the goats are all wet, so they're not allowed in the house.
Wet goats.
Sarah has the same rules for me when it rains.
You can't bring goats in the house, or you or yourself are not allowed in.
Goats are not allowed inside. Well, hey.
I especially wanted to make sure that Eddie and Chelsea were able to access the account to do the minutes or however they wanted to do it. Not, you don't have to use the same system I did. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a barrier there.
I have the board of directors minutes template open, but I'm just changing it to a new copy unless you have an executive committee.
No, I actually was just working on it a few minutes ago, adding the new EC member names onto it. Is that the one you have open? Does it have the right names on it?
No, I think I have an old version.
Did you just take an old minutes and start making a copy and adapting it?
I found the template you sent me a while ago.
A template for board of directors minutes or
Yeah.
executive committee minutes?
No, board of directors.
Oh, okay. I mean, I have two templates, but I'm anal retentive about stuff like that. So whatever way you want to do it, no judgment for me, no shade here.
I just made a copy and changed the name to executive committee.
Whatever works for you, man. I'm not like, I just want to make sure you guys have access to what you want and that there's I didn't leave any like barriers to you guys being able to use it in place. So no fussing for me on that.
Maggie, what if Eddie wants to print the notes out on yellow paper? Is that okay?
That's fine with me. If she
Okay.
wants to chisel it into a stone tablet, I will endorse her whatever she needs to feel good.
I'm just checking the parameters of this thing.
I will never be chiseling anything.
If she wants to write it in the blood of her vanquished enemies, I would cheer for that.
You'd supply some blood.
As long as I'm not an enemy.
What about now? Do I have audio now?
Oh yeah, you sound great, Chelsea.
Yay! Okay, then Maggie, I do not have access, but I waited till today to sign in.
Hold on.
So I would be that alert.
I just wanted to confirm that before I said yes, but then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, don't be silly, Margaret. Who else is trying to get in at 5 o'clock to the secretary's account besides the secretary? But all right.
Well, great. It looks like we've got a lot of folks here. How do we feel about getting started? Yeah.
Yay!
Sounds
Welcome,
good, yeah.
everybody.
All right. Welcome. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
apologize. There were a couple of emails that I sent out this morning, and one was incomplete. Hopefully, the late edition that went out this afternoon, you're able to see it with some of the documents that Jen had included. There are some proposals that we'll be looking at next week to vote on. Brendan can bring those up in the property management committee meeting. Basically, what we've done in the past is we've used this committee, the executive committee, as a way to sort of vet potential items that would be on the agenda for next week's board of directors meeting. And I think that we've done a nice job of trying to make sure that people have the opportunity to bring things individually if they like, or send things along, and I'm open to any other suggestions if there's ways that people would like to bring things to the board's attention. Oh, sorry.
All right, I'm back. I'm having internet difficulties for the next like 5 days. So I apologize. I'll be in and out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So was everyone able to look at some of those documents that were sent today?
I did.
Okay. I'm going to get back in here. I don't know that I can share the screen yet.
Did a bunch of people get those this morning?
Or, because I only got them about an hour ago, so I gotta say I did not have.
The rest were sent out this afternoon. So some got them this morning and everyone else got them this afternoon after you and I wrote, so.
Yeah, Steve and I had a little weird back and forth of like, what the heck is the right link? So I'm super glad everybody was able to make it into the Zoom. Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah. So if you wanted to look at the email, you could see there were some of the things that were sent: the no smoking policy, the tuck pointing bid and recommendation. But I think that the real meat on this particular in the property management report is the potential sale of 913 South Westnedge. So just to bring everyone up to speed, the Vine Neighborhood Association owns a 4-unit building at 913 South Westnedge, which is right kitty corner to O'Duffy's and just south of the Driftwood Guitar Studio. And in 2019, we initiated the conversation about potentially divesting of this asset. The association has owned it for 25 years, I think, or so. It's paid off. It has some deferred maintenance that we were intimidated by, but we've taken it on this year. We've had the old octopus furnace replaced, and each unit now has its own HVAC system. The reason that this was sort of revived with some urgency is that there are 3 other houses on South Westnedge Court, and they're all owned by David Sims. And Mr. Sims has been a good partner for the last 15 years. He runs what they call the South Westnedge Court Association. We pay him a small fee that takes care of, we pay $40 a month, and that takes care of the trash pickup, and it takes care of the maintenance of the lot, the snow removal. But he's ready to divest. He's ready to get rid of his properties and do something else. And he introduced us to the person that he's selling them to. Jen and I had a couple of meetings with him. The overture was, we were not real pleased with the discussion. This gentleman would like our asset at an extremely reduced rate, and we were not interested in pursuing the conversation with him at this point. However, we do feel strongly that this is a good time to divest of 913. And we had picked up this conversation in 2019 and it was derailed last year. But I think we'd really like to make some moves. Jen has laid out some proposals, or laid out in one of her proposals what some of the funds might look like if they were allocated after the sale. I think there's let me see. There, the very first document, which begins with, we would like to recommend moving forward with the sale of 913, currently a 4-unit. There's more meat in that, more information in the text of that email. We were working with board director Aaron Harris, who was with Carrie Kiefer Fisher team at the time, and we were able to get some comps, and we felt like this was really an appropriate time to try to divest and to look for, we wanted to look for partners within the community that we were in harmony with. We approached Kalamazoo Collective Housing, and at this particular time, they're not able to do that. We've got some other conversations that are really in the preliminary stages, so there's nothing really to report on those, but we've talked to a few potential partners as well.
Curiosity's sake, did those include Open Doors or the YWCA?
Open Doors, yes, but extremely no. YWCA, no. But really, Chelsea, we're open to
just
anything.
curious.
I appreciate it. No,
I don't foresee the YWCA like buying more property, as they're just now creating a new Edison branch, and that's taking up a lot of their funds. So I just don't feel like that it would be that they would have them. Maybe not. They might have the funds, but they may not want to invest in another property right now.
Thank you. We got a couple of emails between Stephanie and myself over at Open Doors, just to try to see if we can sit down and have this conversation. So we're optimistic that we'll get a partner that we feel real good about.
Have we talked to anyone about like a relationship with a seller's agent for that property? or I don't remember that specific part of the conversation coming up before. I know Aaron was doing some sort of pro bono work for us with those comps a while back, but I don't remember whether we ever really materialized any sort of leads on working with a seller's agent on that property.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I have left out a crucial component of this potential sale that I apologize. And one of the reasons why Dave approached us is the neighborhood association owns all of the parking over there. So Dave cannot sell his properties unless we come up with some sort of agreement with the potential buyer or sell the properties. So that was some of the urgency. We've had a great relationship with David for 15 years, so we're not terribly concerned if there's a few weeks where tenants are parking there that we're not aware of. We've not used that parking lot as an income generating piece of property ever. So, but we would like to sell the parking lot and 913 together so that we're not caught up in some sort of conversation about egress or who controls what over there. But that's an important part of the conversation that is new to some of the folks, might be new to some of the folks that were involved in the conversation a few years ago when the parking lot was not part of that conversation. So I think what we'd like to do is just open the floor for this and to see if people have questions. And you know, I'm not sure if maybe there's a direct action item, like Sarah, like you said, maybe the board action would be to have us work with a realtor or work with someone like that. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I know that we didn't have a board motion last time to move forward with selling because I think we were still undecided as a board if that was something we wanted to even do.
Well, just to feedback on what you just mentioned, I guess like I could foresee myself being fully enthusiastic about motioning to acquire a seller's agent relationship, maybe contacting 2 or 3 possibilities and setting off on that process. The sale of this property, like really with the way that the housing market is right now, I doubt that we're gonna ever have a much better time to put this property into someone else's hands, but it's like allows us the benefit of kind of leveraging in the buyer's market, or sorry, in the seller's market that we have, the sort of freedom of choice of our board to be able to sort of collaboratively agree on, you know, vetting the right candidates to pass the property off to, and make sure that it's aligned with our mission and our vision. You know, when you have so many offers for so many properties, it really feels like the best chances we could have of having lots of good candidates to choose from to move the property onto the next steward of the neighborhood. And also like we've talked about for years, and especially for those kind of coming into the conversation now, to really alleviate the stresses and burdens of our very overextended property manager staff, contract laborers, and just like the mental load of taking on this property over all this time on top of everything else that we've like built our capacity toward. So my full endorsement behind moving ahead with the sale of the property.
Excellent.
But I'm super interested if anybody has any new thoughts about the process.
I know just by simple banking standards, right now is the most opportune time for us to not only divest ourselves of it, but actually make the most potential. I don't think we'll actually, the rates and the prices that are currently bearing the market but for quite a while. I mean, we're talking decades. Homes are selling for 20 and 30% over their asking price. I think now would be a great time to bring it to the board and sort of bolster what we need to get done, and then we can keep things for the future, like Jen's plans kind of suggest.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a great time for the market. I mentioned that we had spoken to the potential suitor, the potential purchaser of Mr. Sims' property. And one of the things that's interesting about that is he is paying Mr. Sims considerably below market rate. So when I've had some conversations, just these tentative conversations with like Open Doors, I've mentioned that the whole court might be in play. So we're actually optimistic that we could see a really like dramatic project or something over there on that court. And so I think it could have a profound impact in that particular area. And hopefully we could have 4 houses there that could be offering affordable housing instead of just our own as it is right now.
Just for clarity for the notes, I apologize. I was trying to get my ducks in a row, but could we say the address one more time?
913 Southwest Nidge.
I think one of the really important things of this plan is the what Jen has set forward with what we'd actually do with the funds. Because I know if all this money comes into our organization, it's kind of easy to take it in different ways and move it in different ways. So I think the plan of what we would actually do with everything is really important to move forward with with this sale.
I second that.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm excited as like new treasurer in being able to realign, more energy towards evaluating like the best allocation of our financial resources. And we've talked about and endorsed and approved a substantial budget for this financial review process. So the timing would be pretty perfect to have that sort of built into our review and really see it as a comprehensive piece of our outlook in planning and stuff. And also, I guess I just wanted to add one more, maybe, I don't know if this is like repetitive with what I said before, but I feel like I didn't really say it how I quite wanted to say it, as far as like the sale of this property. There's obviously a really hot market right now. And I guess what I didn't mean to imply was that I personally am super excited about like making a ton of money from the sale of this property. But what I am excited about in terms of a hot seller's market right now is that with the market being really tilted in that way, we have the opportunity to probably make a more appealing offer to community partners who would, maybe we by vetting our buyers and by selecting the right buyer that we see as like someone in line with our mission and someone who's going to continue to be good stewards of this property, selling at a premium discount to the right buyer incentivizes a broader selection of really good prospective buyers for the property and new stewards for our neighborhood of this property. So I hope that makes sense to folks the way that I was.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I feel like it's really, like everyone's saying, it's really important what we do with the funds, but also like who is going to be taking this like historical property in our neighborhood.
Steve, one thing that, Sarah bringing up potential agent for this property. I know Jen is pursuing her real estate license. I'm assuming we wouldn't be within her her scope of getting her license and selling this property. So
I'm not sure that that'll dovetail together. I can check in on that timeline, but I don't know that that'll work to our benefit.
Okay, it'd be nice to have that opportunity, but
is it a conflict of interest if Aaron Harris was the realtor?
Eddie, you're a little quiet.
Me now.
When you groaned, it was actually like that was actually pretty good.
Aaron Harris is on our board and is a realtor and is very good. Is that a conflict of interest?
Well, probably yes, but I'm not exactly sure what that means. We have in our documents that I sent out in my, I'm sorry, no, we don't. We have a conflict of interest report that'll go out prior to the meeting, or not report, document that'll go out prior to the meeting next week for folks to sign. We have some conflict of interest. What I can't figure out exactly is how it all susses out and what it means. And I don't know if this is something because there's potential for Aaron Harris to make money off this, if this would be a little bit more complicated. I can talk to Leo about it. We have some conflict of interest items that we need to talk about as a board, and I'm not exactly sure what they all mean, but we have to figure out what it means to us.
We also have a woman of color realtor who has an office in the neighborhood that would be a viable alternative or possible other resource for that front.
Who is that, Maggie?
Who is this?
Twyla Lockett Jones.
Where is she located?
Oh,
We're on West Edge. I added it to our list of mailings. Actually, Gwendolyn was the one that alerted me to it. And so I added it to our mailing address because we didn't have a lot of businesses on the mailing list because it was just residential. So when I was researching the businesses in the neighborhood to add it to our mailing list for the Vine Line, she's one of the new businesses in the neighborhood.
And where did you say that was?
It's on Southwest Edge somewhere. I have the address is in our member list. So I can look it up and email it out if you want. But
it's the brick house right next to the Knights Inn that's being redone.
Oh, okay. I was on the wrong side. I had misunderstood. I thought it was the old Fresh and Clean on Axtell, but that makes perfect sense, right? Okay, yeah. Twyla, I think would be good. We've talked about Marissa Harrington. We've used Marissa before. Marissa's been great. I think that there's opportunities that we can work with other realtors and maybe take the conflict of interest out of Aaron's Aaron's concern, I guess.
Would this fall underneath our contractor policy where we would have to get 3 quotes or 3 people to?
I don't think so.
To bid on the project.
It's quite possible that it could, because the sale of this property would likely involve a seller's fee of exceeding the financial threshold for that. But I guess that's kind of why I was mentioning before, I guess I would endorse the process of soliciting for like at least 3, reaching out to at least 3 agents, and then kind of vetting for the best candidate. A couple of referrals, really great, strong referrals have already been mentioned. And then I would add Desiree Motton to the list as an amazing local agent that would round out like at least the minimum of 3, but there's really no reason we couldn't get maybe like 3 to 5 conversations with agents and see who feels like they would want to take on this relationship. It's quite possible that not everybody is available right now in this like overextended market. So
if the board is comfortable, I'll move forward with reaching out to Desiree, Twyla, and Marissa, and I think those are 3 outstanding candidates. I think, and at least get the kind of a temperature and to see where they're at, and if this is something they've actually got the capacity to do right now.
Steve, can I add? Oh.
I can wait.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
No, go first, please.
Steve, could I add Jamari to that list as well?
Yes.
What is Jamari's last name?
Oh gosh, it starts with a B, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm terrible with names, so.
Oh, I'm horrific. But see, going back to approaching these people, I think this would be a unique contract, and I don't know if it's necessary to have a vision of how we would want the property to be used going into it, or if it's just a free-for-all for profit, if that makes sense. You spoke to the person who was going to manage the property or the surrounding properties, and you were hesitant, and I didn't read all of that. But I was wondering if this, to add to the community, I think that would be a tougher sale to negotiate or a more involved process. It's not really a complete thought, but
I'm not sure that I understand. Can you
are we looking just to sell the property and be done with the property, or are we looking to have some sort of stewardship over?
We are looking to be done and sell the property, and I think that is why we are really to wash our hands of it, move our efforts over to this side of West End.
Perfect.
And I think that's why we were really hoping to identify partners within the community that we felt really good about that could continue.
So not a California investor.
Not a California investor.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Thank you. That was just kind of is it like a free-for-all for anyone? Because that may be a higher offer, and maybe it could be a good stewardship, but.
Right. And the person that approached us would like to offer low income housing, but has never done this before. And we did not, the conversation didn't go well, and we didn't feel like we were already providing low income housing. We didn't need to work with this person. And there was friction almost immediately after we sort of stepped away from the conversation. And so I think we'd like to move on without talking to this particular person. But yeah, eventually we would like to sell that property and just be done with it.
I'd like to welcome the invitation to maybe, like, if you do have some conversations with folks and a couple of them would like to meet with the board just to kind of get an idea of what kind of working relationship we're looking for, and give us the opportunity to give feedback to the process. You know, of course, like, that might be valuable for staff to feel. I know you guys have always like appreciated the board like being behind things from the get-go, and not feeling like, you know, you have to sell it to the board, you know, along with forming the working relationships. So
would you like us to reach out to these 4 candidates and then to ask, like, to kind of, for us to make a recommendation? Or would you like, if people are available, should we bring folks in and ask them to speak to the board? Or am I getting way too far ahead of this and we'll just see who's available when and we'll go from there? Let me see.
I think it'd be wise to invite everybody in and have everybody ask their questions.
Yeah.
Would
Okay.
it be wise to just wait till next week after the meeting and ask the board to first approve the sale? Because that is something we've kind of gone back and forth about.
I think that's,
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I think we should ask the board to approve the sale, and then we should also sign the conflict of interest and get some clarity on what that actually is, and then go from what's the next step from there.
Yeah.
Yep.
thanks, Gwendolyn. I was going to ask about that too, because we do everything remotely now, but we do all have to like sign our annual update of our conflict of interests. So I wanted to ask if we could plug that in tonight for a few minutes, just to logistically make a plan for how to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, thank you. I think we've got the marching orders for 9/13. Appreciate that. Let me jump back over in here. I don't know if anyone wanted to look over the proposals that Jen had sent for the no smoking policy, or the tuck pointing, or if that's just, if we're okay with that and we'll just address that next week at the board meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to read more into it because I just got the documents.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. And there's nothing in there that's, I think, terribly complicated, but Jen is planning on attending next week and will be available for conversation and questions if anyone has any of those. Any other questions on Southwestnage or property management at this time?
Did I miss the information about where Jen is on the status of her licensing for her realtor's license?
No, I'm sorry. I'll ask for that. I don't know where she is. I should have thought of that prior. Thank you, Gwendolyn.
And just, I guess, as a informational aside, a realtor's license involves basically like a process of getting registered for 40 hours of coursework, followed by passing a test. That's pretty much the whole process. So I don't know what the schedule is like for that right now, but that's what we would be looking at. So we'd be looking at like adding that into Jen's schedule might be like a multi-month process, or it could be a matter of a month, I would think.
I know that she's reached out to Marissa. What I don't know is what her timeline is, or how far along she is in that process. I'll ask for an update, and Jen will be available at the meeting too.
Well, Steve, going back to before when you were talking about just even approaching the individuals if they would want to take on this project, because it might just not be one house. It could be a little more complicated where you're selling 4 houses together and you're also planning for a public lot. So for some people, knowing that it won't be just like your traditional family, it could be different parties, that might be an adventure that they don't have the time or want to invest in.
Thank you. That's a good point. I'll have to make sure that when I speak to all 4, that there is potentially, I'll make sure that I talk about the potential scenarios. Thank you.
I do think it would be valuable to, to have Jen go along with this full process. I mean, if she's going after a real estate license, I mean, this could be part of those hours.
A wonderful opportunity for exposure.
Exactly. Yeah. And, to follow someone around on something that she knows so well.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I can give a brief update on the assistant, what are they calling it? Assistant construction manager that they're hiring over at Community Homeworks, and that's going to be working with us here at the Neighborhood Association for 10 hours a week. The final 3 candidates are included in my report, and I think there's 2 Vine people and 1 Northside person. I'm not very familiar with any of the candidates. If people wanted to take a look and see who they were, and if they have strong feelings, then please feel free to send questions, comments, or concerns. I will be sitting in, and they're hoping to do interviews next week, and I'll be sitting in on those, and Jen, if she's available as well. And then they are hoping to onboard this position the week of the 4th of July. So we have tipped our hat to them with their speed at Community Homeworks. They've really moved very deliberately on this, and it's been exciting to see. So that'll be nice to have that asset too, I guess, is to have someone here to take some of the things off the to-do list around here. So that's a nice update on that end. I did meet with David Anderson, and the day that he gave us that worked best for him to speak to the board and residents would be June 28th at 7 p.m. And this is in regards to the former Knights Inn that has been purchased by Lyft and is going to be repurposed for permanent low-income housing, I believe. And Dave has made himself available to answer questions and concerns. So I would like to ask the board if this is something that they feel should be, if this is something that we should open up to the neighborhood as a whole on Zoom, or if this is something that we should go through our kind of our email contacts and send to, how would people like to see this put out to the community?
Can we back up a little bit? I'm trying to take notes and I'm not a rock star like Margaret, even though Chelsea's helping me. What could you restate what this is? And is it under property management? Are we moving on? We're in a new section. No, it's okay.
Sure,
We're in training,
I got it on the second page. I wasn't sure if it was second order, so I just dropped it under third order.
Yeah, okay.
Please, yeah, thank you, Eddie and Chelsea. Please, tell me to slow down or go back or whatever it is. And I think I'm excited for this board, and so I want to make sure that everyone feels like they're getting the information that they need, and that my excitement isn't overwhelming and we're just tearing through things. So the conversation with Mayor Anderson is in regards to the former Knights Inn on Westnedge and just south of Axtell and north of Denadel. I'm sorry, of Forest. And it's going to be, that former hotel is going to be repurposed to provide housing. And we've had residents that have had some questions. No one, I haven't heard anyone voice any concerns, but residents have had questions, and we've been trying to come up with a time with Mayor Anderson that works for everybody. And the 28th of this month was the quickest, kind of the most available, the next most available date that he had. So we plugged that in. And this will be a Zoom meeting that I set up. I would prefer to make it available and open to anyone and everyone, but I didn't know in order to facilitate a conversation if the board felt like they wanted to have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Anderson on their own.
I think it would be good to invite everybody in, and if we need to hit mute all, we can do that and give him speaking rights, and we can do the whole raise your hand if you need to talk thing.
Yeah, great.
So he's coming to talk to us about the Knights Inn, and we're hosting it. Is that correct? The city's not using their infrastructure to host it, just so I understand.
Not have the city. When I talked to David, I talked to him about, would this be a Lyft presentation or a Vine presentation? And he would prefer for us to host on Zoom. And I think it's just, he will be wearing his Lyft hat at the time.
The only reason I'm reluctant about setting it up to open it up to the neighborhood is our extremely limited capacity for technological savvy in hosting Zoom meetings. Yeah. We have literally had like tech breakdowns in almost every meeting that we've tried on Zoom so far, and we don't have an IT person, and we don't have a tech committee anymore. And unless we have a specific person designated for the event just for technology, it sounds really daunting to try to open it up to the public and make sure that things don't go haywire during that. I've witnessed some pretty rough meetings when folks, when things exceed the technological capacity of the host, which I could easily foresee this being that, which is why I'm a little discouraged or like a little disappointed that Lyft or the city or like someone with sort of like paid IT staff didn't offer to host a forum. That's something that it sounded like it was the initial offering, and now they've kind of backed down from that. And I guess I'm almost wondering if we should use the opportunity to just like push for that as the ask, to put the burden of that on the people who are trying to, like Lyft is the ones that are trying to sort of present the information to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be nice if that was the way it was laid out. Yeah. I have probably 3 or 4 people who are kind of constant regulars asking for updates. So I don't think there would be a huge amount of people from the community, but that would want to sit in on the Zoom meeting. But it would be nice if that was my understanding too, is I felt like this was a Lyft presentation. So I can double back with David.
Can I put it in the context too of larger issues that we've had just regarding community engagement in the city and projects of this type, and that we've talked before the world turned upside down, we were in the middle of planning like a bigger forum, a moderated forum where we would have someone from the city talking about what their guidelines are about giving notification for things like special use permits and stuff like that. And then I think it would be better for us to not approach this as a one-off, which is kind of where we've always gotten caught, right? Where a project goes in, people notice it, then they're upset. And then we're dealing with that one thing as a singular issue, where I think it really is an opportunity for us to try to reach the city on a broader, on the broader issue of how we want them to communicate more effectively with the neighborhood as a whole about all kinds of projects of this variety. So like, it needs to be more than 2 weeks notice. It needs to be more than 300 feet from the boundaries of the thing. It needs to be a formal engagement with the neighborhood associations. Those were the things that I would have thought would have been the talking points for a discussion like this. Whereas if we situate it as we're talking to the mayor, but he's not the mayor, he's just coming about this one particular project, we're kind of just doing the same thing we've always done. And then the next time a project comes around, we'll have the same problems.
So my internet disconnected, so I'm wondering, I'm so sorry. Where are we at in conversation? I'm sorry. I know we're talking about the Nights Inn.
Yes, sorry.
Well, I was going to be a little repetitive with what Margaret just said anyway. So I just want to also just say that like this whole discussion, idea of having a discussion with David about the project has always in my mind felt like very dovetailed and just kind of in continuum with the pretty expansive, comprehensive housing, transitional housing forum that we were well along in a planning process of, like you just said, at the point when the pandemic hit. And that just completely fell off the radar. Even though it was something we had spent probably more than a year talking about at that point, and then actually planning for, and like we had dates set for certain pieces of it and everything. We had co-coordinators set up, you know, we had open doors signed on. We were like getting there. And it was
different,
it was
3 or 4 different community organizations, a rep from the city.
Yeah, and it was the outcome of years of this board sort of putting out the fires of a lot of kind of like NIMBY outbursts that happen every single time a transitional housing entity comes into the neighborhood, and then nobody knows about it until after the fact. And then when people only find out about it after the fact, everyone feels very defensive and interrogative. And the thing we heard over and over again every time one of these things has created a fuss is that, like, you know, be proactive, be communicative. And so what David is kind of maybe talking to us about doing, like it's a little proactive here, but it's really a bigger conversation that we were already having. And so it very much feels like it doesn't make sense to me to also, I totally agree. It doesn't make sense to single this out instead of taking the opportunity to just go right back to the bigger conversations we were already having and plug this into it.
So maybe we should just toss it back to Dave and say we want to hold it open to the public and you guys are in charge. Here's your candle. We will do the advertising. We'll put it on our Facebook or our social media and leave it at that. That way it makes the beholdenness on them and not on us. And if they don't hold the meeting, then we're holding them to a higher degree by going, why?
I think Gwendolyn's trying to jump in.
I wanted to hear what Gwendolyn had to say.
Can you explain to me why you had Maria Cavalonis close?
We're not hearing you yet, I don't think.
Yeah, it's in and out.
Still somebody stuck? Okay, so you know there's a zero tolerance for stealing, correct?
Oh, she's talking to someone.
Exactly.
Gwendolyn, were you trying to?
Okay.
Is there something that you need to help?
No, I think she's talking to someone.
Okay, sorry.
But I do support.
Do you have totes already, or do you need totes?
We're more
Okay.
on the
No, can we
side
get
of
her some
like
totes from free toss?
either giving them full
All right,
control
thank
of
you.
their
You can always reapply
the
to
community
the program.
discussion,
This is why I
or
call it open doors.
Hold on.
All right.
Hey,
Or
Gwendolyn,
we're
can you mute,
the
please?
open.
I just can't hear. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Gwendolyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go on. I can hear now.
I had a situation. I'm at the hotel. I didn't have anything. I was just trying to get clarity on exactly what we were doing specifically for that meeting, because I know initially it started out with them wanting to come and explain, what they were doing at it's called the Lodge now, formerly Night Then. And so how it turned into us hosting a forum for them, I'm not really understanding.
I
feel like if it was a forum, we should forum on a larger housing issue.
Well, I was asked to set up and facilitate a meeting. We have residents that have been curious as to what's going on. So I've been talking to David for most of this year, and we as a board could not come up collectively with dates that worked for us. And so I said, David, like, give us a date. We want the people in the neighborhood want to know what's going on. And this was the best that we could come up with. I mean, we can send it back to David. I could say, hey, we're under the understanding that Lyft was going to make this presentation. There is no formal structure to this. This could be for the board and guests. It could be for the neighborhood. If you want to pump the brakes and somebody else wants to take this over, I mean, we have, I got a dozen events that we've got going on. And if somebody else would like to take this over and work with David, that's fine. I can reach out to David again and say, again, like you've asked that Lyft hosts, I think that's fine. There is a little bit of urgency on this, and people have been asking about this for a while. So, if there's a restructuring, I would hope that there's some, I guess, some expediency to it.
Can I jump in to check in on?
So honestly,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
Honestly, I think that it is, urgent, because we, have been having this conversation back and forth for a while. I just think the only thing, Steve, is just to, and I don't think you'll have a problem with it, it's just saying, can Lyft host the meeting, because we don't have the technical capacity to do it. And I think that would be fine.
No problem whatsoever there. I don't mind doing that at all.
Definitely. I also wanted to ask the 3 members of our housing committee who are here right now, if any of y'all would like to, at least 3, I'm not even sure who all is on the housing committee right now, but if any of y'all were interested in sort of like helping to coordinate that as an event with the VNA. I'm hearing from Steve that like we have a lot of events in all kinds of different branches and directions going on right now. And I want to just acknowledge that I'm hearing from our staff that additional supports are needed. And I wanted to just like see if we can do something proactively like right now to try to give a partner at least to Steve in making this event a success, because it really feels appropriate for someone from the housing committee to help collaborate on it.
I second that.
So I'm on the housing committee and I have no problem working with Dave, but really I think the ownership of this goes to them, not us. So they need to get their ducks in a row so we can advertise it, put it out there. Because beyond that, I think the ownership really is on them for telling us what is going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's another issue that's kind of, in my mind, pressingly dovetailing into this. And it all goes back to kind of communication and structural issues with how the city does that. Because we have over 50 homes in our neighborhood that are now are about to be added to the natural features protection overlay expansion, which means they will not be able to do any modifications to the slope of their yard without getting prior approval, and they will not be able to remove any trees without getting prior approval and using an approved arborist or tree removal company, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but given that we're already a low income neighborhood and we're already all underneath the somewhat burdensome regulations of the Historic District Commission, we now have a bunch of neighbors who are going to have two overlays to deal with when it comes to doing any work on their homes. And as near as I can tell, people aren't really getting notified because there's been a lot of back and forth between the Planning Commission, which initially refused to approve the expansion as it was first written back in the fall. Like, they thought this was going to be passed in January. They're now going to be doing their last meeting about it this month. And I have not heard, I've heard about it because I watched the city's page. But as far as I can tell, residents have not been getting letters about it. And the definition of who should be notified about these kinds of changes is where I see the nexus of this problem, right? Like, we wouldn't be dealing with people being upset about the Nights Inn if we'd had better communication a year ago when this project started. So I think it's a good idea to make this meeting that is under works work, but I think we have a bigger issue that we need to also pick up the baton and push on too, and that's that we need to ask the city formally to engage with the neighborhoods about making a communication plan that is more than 2 weeks and 300 feet. That's where I think the nexus of the problem is starting.
That's real. That's accurate.
Because honestly, if you're passing this through, I'm sorry, I'm getting on my housing soapbox. I apologize, everyone. No neighborhood association meets more than once a month. So if you're giving less than 1 month's notice about these kinds of changes, you don't give neighborhood associations a chance to engage with their neighbors or even themselves about it. So we need to really push, like, this needs to change because it's going to continue to be a problem if we don't.
Also, if they're expecting us to be accountable to host a forum for them, they should be expecting to be accountable to communicate the projects with us way ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, the city's got this, like, the city has this piece locked down. Like, they're really good at running meetings. They've got all the tech figured out. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like that's a place where we can like lean on the city to get some support to make this stuff work better. But by kind of pushing it out of being a city issue to being a Lyft issue, there we can't then really push back on saying like we want the city to help us do it. Like, I think that's the way the city could really serve the neighborhood associations, is if they gave us a little tech support on that front, you know.
Another piece of this that I would like to inject in relation to the lodge is the fact that it is now, public information that my company Lockhart is going to be managing this property, and there's no reason that they shouldn't be brought into the conversation at this point, and also invited to participate, since like we're literally the people who are going to be on site and administering the property. That someone from that management shouldn't be involved in sort of talking about this in terms of like a forum or a community conversation or what have you. It's always been like the entity that will be managing, like if the YMCA, for instance, with the one on Cedar and, that one was not Cedar, but
Axtell.
Thank you, Axtell. And then the, was it Bethany House with the one on Cedar? And yeah, so like Lyft is the purchasing power behind the property, but the actual management of the property should be part of the conversation as well. So I guess I would just recommend urging David to bring folks from Lockhart into the conversation too.
Yeah, I second that.
How would folks feel about me sending an email to David and including Jeremy and Maggie, and is there anyone else that would like to be a part of that reply? And in that text, I will mention that we would like Lyft to take over the presentation. We'd be glad to help do the promotion of the event. of the meeting, and that we would also like to have a representative from, I'm sorry, Sarah, Lockhart?
Lockhart.
Okay.
They're on the sign in front of the property now. So like, clearly there's no ifs, ands, or buts about, you know, their involvement and heading the project.
Steve, thanks for being flexible.
Hold on one second.
I certainly didn't.
I would,
something hard about it.
Steve,
Yes.
please add me to that email thread.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd also like to
Thank
be
you.
added.
You're welcome to add me as well. In spite of any awkwardness it might cause.
So is there anybody that doesn't want to be added? It might be easier.
Steve, you can leave me out.
No, you're in it. You're in it too. Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm sorry, Meg. I didn't mean. I hope that didn't come off as defensive. I mean, we can push this off as long as the board wants. If the board wants to put a lot of effort into getting more of a foundation underneath this to make it bigger. But I think as Gwendolyn reiterated, like there is some urgency. We'd like to be able to kind of get out a little. We're not going to be able to get out in front of this, but it'd be nice if we were able to do it, and bring residents into the fold before it was up and running, I guess, and firmly established.
I'd like to suggest that since David has offered his time specifically on, a designated date and time, at minimum, like maybe we use that opportunity for those among the board and staff to have a smaller initial conversation to plan for a community conversation. And maybe that's the conversation that could happen on June 28th at 7 p.m. is just a quick initial discussion to try to lay out the best practices that need to be involved in like hosting an actual legitimate community conversation about the project, how to advertise it and who's going to be hosting it. And just, like we actually we're planning to do that discussion with the representatives from Open Doors and the city and all those folks. That was like on the schedule to have a planning meeting for the forum. And we had already decided that was a necessary step for that. So just a suggestion because he has already, said he's available at that time.
Well, it's also a very timely, it's very timely for us to have this conversation. One of the things that I thought might make it into this agenda, or at least this board report, is that public safety would like us to host, or they would like to partner on an open house. And I've asked what that means. And they want an open house forum for, I guess, the chief to talk to. We've not been able to come up with a date. I was hoping to have one locked in before this, but it just hasn't happened. But this will be a very similar conversation, if not wider ranging than this one here, in terms of how do we host it and what do we want this to look like?
Steve, maybe that's something that you could ask Mr. Anderson from his mayor hat, if the city would be willing to support us hosting these. We could host the events, but if the city could support us with their resources, like IT support and stuff like that for these meetings. So we still host it. But.
Sorry, I work for Public Media Network, and I know for a fact that most of the government meetings are at least covered by our network. So they do have the tech support, and it is very affordable for them and kind of easy to get the streaming services, the camera operators, and I personally know all of the people doing it. So
yeah,
that's just my 2 cents on that. It's pretty easy for them to facilitate.
I would expect that public safety, because they've got a whole PR wing, that they will host and they will set this up, and our job will be to help promote that. But that's still a good conversation to be having, though. Thank you, Maya.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I will send out an email to David Anderson and include everybody but Brendan in that email, and we will go from there.
That's the way to do it. Keep Brendan out always.
Yeah, freeze him out. He might have gotten voted in, but he's got a long way to go. So
I didn't hear him on the call reject himself, so that's what I got.
all right. Okay, thank you. I've
Do you
lost.
need help?
I'm sorry. Did I cut someone off? No.
No, sorry, I was checking in.
Okay.
My friend.
Okay. So I think, are there any other questions about Lyft and the lodge? Okay.
I actually had a question that maybe someone here can answer, because I was made aware that the lodge is now vacated and in the renovation process. But what I don't know is, what was the temporary or eventual placement of all of the folks who had been staying there? Because the last I heard, it had been partly occupied by some of the previous residents, and then some folks had been moved in, but I don't know that it was ever made like public where folks were going to be temporarily housed.
It wasn't made public where physically they would be housed, but there has been a lot of communication, and I've seen some MLive articles pop up. They did find housing for all but, I believe, 7 individuals. And when they were talking about the 7, they took there was very particular words that were expressed, that it may have been at their choice not to go into the housing. I think some of the hotels were referenced, but again, I don't think they're saying that these people went to this hotel and that person went to that hotel. But from my understanding, it is now currently awaiting construction.
Yeah, I guess that kind of answers my question. It was really just a question in terms of like, were the folks like all like temporarily moved over to somewhere else and then going to move back, or
No.
No.
It sounds like
They were offered social workers and caseworkers to help them find permanent housing as opposed to temporary status, and for a first case option. I know specifically a family of 4 was moved into a 2-bedroom apartment as opposed to finding a temporary shelter for them until this was completed, because not all cases there were suitable for a studio or efficiency type apartment.
Is there anything else for the lodge?
We'll have community organizations. I'm sorry, I'm new, but we'll have community organizations involved in these conversations as well, correct?
Which community organizations would you like to have involved? We can invite whomever.
Definitely Uplift. I would like Uplift Kalamazoo involved in this, because they've been doing a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the feeding. So I would be interested to see what they have to say when it comes to the law in particular.
Do you have a contact person for that, Maya?
Yeah, I can message King Ryan. I'll facilitate it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
I don't know if
And
I'm
when is
allowed
this
to nominate
conversation?
Gwendolyn to participate in the conversation, but I know that Hope has been involved throughout the process. And I guess I wanted to ask you, Gwendolyn, if there's some extent to which you would like to have yourself or any representative from Hope involved in the conversation. We should make that available.
Well, I will definitely welcome that opportunity. I'm planning to be there. I don't know to what extent, but whatever extent or role that I can play, I'm happy.
Thank you.
It's always good to have you in the conversation, Gwendolyn. That's all I'm thinking.
If there's any other additions for folks that they would like to see invited, please feel free to send their name and contact information as well. And I will get that email out to David tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. So let's see, we'll have the conflict of interest paperwork that we'll send out next week. Jen and I have some onboarding documents that we've kind of picked up through other organizations that we've looked at that we would like to give to the board in hopes that it might be helpful. These are not expectations or anything. These are very much kind of rough drafts that we were hoping that might be helpful to both new and old board members. And we were hoping to be able to get board packets to folks if we were meeting in person this month. But what we'd like to do instead is we've got these packets with kind of some of the cause-driven organization reports that we had last year in the board summary, and the Imagine Kalamazoo report is in here, and documents that we hope would be helpful and informative. Again, we want to make sure that people know that this is not official Vine documents. This is paperwork that we thought would be helpful, and if at some point we decide that we'd like to tweak them and wordsmith them and put them on letterhead, that's something we can do later on down the road. But the board has talked about looking for ways to help onboard, and so we were hoping that this might be beneficial to members too. I'm not sure what else, do we want to get into sort of the logistics of the meeting next week in terms of how it's going to be run, or what would be beneficial for the new executive committee moving forward?
If I could pause before we jump into that real quick, just to tack on a comment to what Jen had mentioned to me. You guys were putting together some materials and everything, and I just wanted to offer as sort of an outgoing chair, sort of closure movement, that I would love to probably add a few things into that in order to just kind of pass the information forward and make sure that we maintain as much continuity. So I can cull some of the stuff that I would really love to really just make available as part of a big, like putting it all together just makes it so much easier for folks to digest. So I'd rather do like put it in with your stuff than be sending people things from a bunch of random directions.
Absolutely, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, I think you were talking, sorry. So to get back to, I think you were basically like hinting at putting together an agenda. So anyway.
I want to be helpful, but I don't want to, I want to know where I can assist and what people would like to see. And we've got, people who are very energetic, but have not been necessarily involved in this process before. And I want to make sure that they know that this is very organic and it's all hands in, and everybody can throw ingredients into this mix. It's much better with everybody's input for sure.
So Sarah, just to clarify for the notes, you said you also have some paperwork or documents that might be helpful for onboarding some new board members. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Steve had mentioned what I had already heard a little bit about from Jen last week when I talked to her, which was just this kind of comprehensive informational packet. And I haven't really, I haven't looked it over. So like, I don't know, maybe some of it might be redundant, but I just want to make sure that all of the resources that I kind of have accumulated over the last few years get disseminated, to everybody new and really like to all of us. So I'm pretty sure even board members who have been around for a while probably don't have all of this in one place.
I have a question just in regards to agendas and meetings. So it seems like last week or next week, there's going to be so much going on. So there's going to be all this house discussion, like the sale itself, and then the realtor discussion, and then like the onboarding and the conflict. And just for planning out life, do meetings just go on and on and on, or do they hit 4 hours and then break for another moment? Or how does that organically occur.
Our meetings.
Maybe this is a great time to say, what do we want the meetings to do?
Thank you.
I would prefer if we just because you all know me, and feel free to disagree, but like if we stuck to some sort of boundary in terms of time, just so that I know we all have like life stuff going on, that maybe we can figure out a way where we can be concise and at least when the meetings end. I don't know though, that's up to you.
Chelsea, I think some of these things, what we can do too is prioritize some of these action items, like the things that need a vote and the sale. And then, if the onboarding has to be done in the next month, then that's something that we can give people these documents and they can take a month to look at it. This is a busy agenda, but it's not necessarily going to be a typical agenda moving forward.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate the perspective though. And I love what Maya said of just kind of figuring out what are healthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to speak to what are healthy boundaries, but I just want to add historical context to this very relevant and important conversation that I would love people to have as we plan for this year, which is just that as the facilitator for the last couple of years, our meetings have generally stuck to right around 2 hours. Although I will say that the goal set, I think it was pre-pandemic, at a certain point was to shorten the meeting length to 1.5 hours. That was never able to materialize. We just consistently went over time to about 2 hours. And then I always would try to cut it off at 2 hours. And that oftentimes felt pretty long. But I just wanted to give that context to the discussion because it is a really super good thing to talk about ahead of time before you have to awkwardly come back later and change things.
Mm-hmm. I know in all the meetings that I've ever been to, and God, there's plenty, the time caps have never held for any good reason. Timing an agenda has never held for a very good reason. And really the best run meetings have just come down to keep things concise instead of blathering on opinions, bring information and put what you know up. And if it's easier for the people that are taking the notes to have those notes sent to them, that way it can be added. Perfect. We can make that part of the deal. Whatever makes it easiest and faster usually makes it happier.
Thank you. I like the tie-in.
I also want to challenge us to combat white supremacy culture. And one of the things is that urgency is one of the tenets of white supremacy culture. And I feel like we tend to, as a board, we did start talking about this just for context for some of the newer members. We went over some of the surge 14 tenets of white supremacy culture. When I say that, I'm not meaning like overt white supremacists. We're not talking about like the Ku Klux Klan. We are kind of trying to like break down how it manifests in nonprofits, and that there was a document we were following, and one of the things was an urgency to make sure we're checking off all of the boxes and like follow through with an agenda and make sure we power through an agenda. And so I want to just invite us to be more open-minded and remind ourselves to constantly be challenging those habits that turn into like a sense of urgency or an over-reliance on sticking to the agenda if subject matters come up. So I'm just trying to remind us that we were working towards that. So.
Well put, Eddie.
this is Gwendolyn. I just wanted to say, Eddie, I appreciate you lifting that up, just because, the way that things have always been done doesn't necessarily mean that they have to continue to be done that way, especially when they're rooted in structurally racist practices. Really being more intentional about, an agenda, we make the agenda and we can make old business, new business, we can make new business, old business. Like, we can carry agendas over unless it's something that is really, relevant to a task that needs to be taken care of. I just, I know that time is just really valuable, and to be in a meeting for 2 hours is a lot. And I think that it really fringes on just being, it's a lot. I sit on a lot of boards, and I don't have one board that takes 2 hours under any circumstances. So I think that we need to figure out how to make it concise and make it and have some way of making sure that we're sticking to the agenda items and not going off, like Jeremy was saying, on tangents and getting kind of in the mud with sideline issues that can be discussed after the meeting is over if people choose to. But really, it's just not that many things that are really that pressing that we have to just stay 2.5, 3 hours to go through the agenda just because it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I second that. And also just keeping in mind that, I feel like if we do prioritize, like, not that they're, I'm not trying to like speak to an urgency culture. I'm just trying to figure out if there are things that we need that need to be stated like first, so that for time's sake, because we have some sort of deadline. I don't know if we have deadlines in the board, that we address the things that are most pertinent maybe first, so we have more time to discuss or ponder on it. And then, leaving things that can be addressed in another meeting, if we can't come to a consensus for the last. What does that sound like to people?
I think that sounds great. My observation has been, we do tend to discuss a lot that should be discussed perhaps in committees, and then the committees should really just be reporting back to us. I have found that in this board, we do tend to get everyone involved in a lot of the decisions. I also have noticed that this board also gets very involved in what staff should be deciding, and we should be empowering our staff a lot more. And I think that's because it's a transition from a working board, and maybe I'm wrong in that, but that has been my experience. I've seen us discuss at length stuff that really should just be, we should empower our property manager or our executive director. So I think there's definitely ways we can improve on. And I know in the end, we're all like really working towards having a shorter meeting, but I think we also need to remember that we want to work towards efficiency, not just efficiency, but like efficiency and empowerment for the committees and for the staff. And, I think I love that we're trying to get everyone's voices a lot of times, but often I want to feel like I do trust that other committees can make decisions too and bring it to the board, and then we can have a quicker discussion instead of at length with a lot of what we end up talking about. So those are some observations and just ways that I've been on boards before, or have been staff with a board before and have observed differences. So.
Would we be willing to do a committee system where we have subcommittees for different issues, and then those subcommittees meet before meetings and bring up their ideas for the board to address?
Yes, I think this is a great time to, for some of the newer folks, we do have a few committees, so we already do have some. And yeah, I think we do try to do that. I think in the agenda, it does have report backs from the committees, but I do find often that sometimes the entire board gets engaged when I would like to propose we try to empower the committees to be able to do decisions and then bring those decisions to the board for a final approval.
Eddie, I'd like to add to that, and I think we should require board members to be on committees. I think that should be a mandatory thing if you're on the board, where you have to be involved in a committee that then reports back up to the board. It means one more meeting or whatnot, but at least, you know, maybe less discussion overall in a 5-hour meeting. So
I've got the Vine committee list here that I'll be sending out, and it's blank right now, but it's got our finance, fundraising, community care, technology, property management, events, and housing. And then down at the bottom, we've got some numbers like mine and Jen, but I'll send this out. This was going to be part of that onboarding packet that we had talked about as well. But
real quick, if you could update that committee list with the equity committee. That committee was formed already by motion several months ago. And if we're going to be reactivating committees, I want to make sure that that's one of them. I also kind of want to suggest that we put our technology committee on hiatus right now. We are in the process of trying to allocate this $5,000 in funding towards technology support. And we have had 0 members of the technology committee for quite a long time, other than Jared for a while there. So I feel like that's a natural transition. And also, I'm so glad this topic came up, and I'm sorry I interrupted, but
I appreciate it. I'll just get rid of the tech committee and move the equity committee over. I appreciate it.
What are the prerequisites for starting a committee? And if there are none, would we be open to, you know, combining that into a potential arts and technology committee? That way we could cover both of those possibly, and also support community art projects in the area.
I think we would be appreciative of any. We really don't have. We've struggled to get a lot of the committees up and running, and I think we were doing a nice job of really getting some energy and some enthusiasm. And then last year, when things were derailed, so I would love to have some priorities like a finance committee and property management, and then arts, and but I think at this point we could take on as many committees, ad hoc or other, as the board was willing to serve on.
Also, if I could just real quick, a rundown in terms of kind of passing information forward into our next iteration. What I have documented as the current list of committee chairs and vacancies. So as far as I know, I don't think we designated anyone to head up the equity committee. So if you're going to send out that list, Steve, this is kind of relevant to what you were talking about. But so that one is vacant. Housing committee was, Jeremy was at least interim chair of that recently, but I'm not sure if that's a continuation in this upcoming year. Events committee does not have currently any chair. Brendan is the chair of the property management committee. Laura is the chair of the fundraising committee. And I would like to nominate myself as chair of the finance committee for this upcoming year. And so I really wanted to ask, actually, I'm so glad this came up. I wanted to ask that we talk about it tonight, and that we maybe talk about it next week as well, to activate these committees and bring it into our agenda. It absolutely is an important part of making things efficient. And another piece on top of everything else that was discussed is just the fact that since the pandemic hit, our committees have kind of been de facto largely in dormancy. Most of them have not met, or if they have, they've been just bare bones, a Zoom meeting here or there, kind of ad hoc. So thanks everybody for getting ahead of that.
Sarah, should that be do you think that the committees should be an agenda item, a proper agenda item then?
Yeah. I was going to ask that we add it to the agenda for next week.
I think so too. Okay.
There was one time when we did agenda signups, as we just had it written on a whiteboard. And we were like, social pressure time, everybody write your name down somewhere, if not a couple of places. And that seemed like a really efficient way to get people onto committees. And maybe there's a way we could do that.
With cupcakes.
You could pretty easily do it.
Just throwing it out there.
Every committee chair makes cupcakes. And the one who has the best cupcakes, if you take a cupcake, you join the committee.
I like it.
I offer cupcakes and wine.
The one benefit of Zoom, literally the only one, maybe, aside from accessibility and a million other benefits. But the one benefit that we have here is that, like, what was quite a bit of work involving a facilitator and doing committee signups before, I think we could pretty easily just do a quick committee sign up in the Zoom chat during our meeting next week, where like each person present just lists the committees that they want to sign up for, and that literally just writes itself into the chat room.
We could, not to sound too much like Jared, but we could also do a Zoom document, a Google document that gets shared with everyone as a link. And then in real time, we can all write our name down, and we then have a document that people have signed that's an actual document. I don't know.
Just a question in regards to committees. In the past, I know that they've occurred on certain days. A lot of the committees don't have chairs, but I know like for the neighborhood, like the safety one, that occurs on a consistent date. Are there already dates established for these committees, or does that just kind of organically happen?
Community Cares is the first Tuesday of the month.
Yes, that one.
And then we have the Property Management Committee is the first Thursday of the month at 10 p.m. And I believe those are the only two that I know of that have regular meetings.
Not at 10 p.m.
10 a.m.
Okay.
Sorry. We're really committed.
Property management meets at midnight on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing happened to the meeting times when all of those committees went into a largely a state of dormancy. A pretty regular established recurring meeting times fell off the map and are pretty much need to be reaffirmed at this point, and have always been the responsibility of each committee chair for establishing the meeting times.
And just to confirm, I'm assuming that the committees they all share the same Vine link, so they have to make sure that they're not conflicting with another interest that's going on at that time. Or I'm not Vine link, Zoom link.
For the Property Management Committee, we've been using a Microsoft Teams link from my work
So there's
account.
flexibility with that.
But we also, we've had one of our tech committee members, Steve, is not too tech savvy. So we've had to do some sort of ad hoc in-person meetings. So we have
I love the kindness.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I think it's good to think about that over the next year, we'll be probably transitioning back to meeting in person, which then leaves us with like a meeting room that we need to make sure that we're not conflicting with other events that are happening in the room. If we get a time that works virtually, might not work in person because there might be something else in the room.
I also want to invite us to like keep this as an option for some of the committees or what have you. Maybe I'm just being selfish. It's hard with a kid. I understand what you're saying, that we will be eventually. I would propose that the big meeting, like the board of directors meeting, be in person. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But I have really benefited from these online meetings, and I think it might be easier for some folks to just be able to do some of the committee meetings over Zoom as well. That's just something I want to remind us that it has been easier for some.
Yeah, I'd like to see some sort of hybrid moving forward.
Yeah.
I'd like to meet personally, but I know that it's been really convenient, and I'd like to keep that option.
I like the idea of a hybrid where some folks can come in on Zoom if we can get our tech up to par with that, and some folks could be in the meeting too and have the tech to do that. People are able to do that. I've done that a few times with other groups. So
Steve, do you think we have the technology? We kind of changed subjects here, but do you think we have the technology to do a hybrid? We probably need some type of screen or something, and then some type of microphone, right?
we have a screen.
We have a screen. Yeah, we can get a microphone.
Projector.
To your previous point, you could probably open up your window and yell out into the street and ask somebody if the VNA is equipped, and they could have an answer that's just as well informed as mine.
I think because of our board, we might have the ability to crowdsource it in our board to problem solve, because a lot of us have had to figure this technology out over this year. And so like even bringing Aaron back to help with that might be good kind of thing. But I do think it's feasible. I just want to remind us that we do have options.
Well, I know we're coming up on 7 o'clock and we want to be respectful of people's time. I also know that this, I kind of got us behind the 8 ball by getting things out tardy. And so I want to make sure that people aren't feeling rushed, but just aware of the time right now.
I would like everybody to know that I fully authorized Jen to get a dog poop station installed, because as the dog poop station king of Osborne, I guess she's wanted one for a while, and I told her that if she wanted to spend the $100, that I would definitely cover that. Just letting everybody know I went wild and crazy like that.
Ooh. In the interest of time, I just wanted to mention there was one other thing I wanted to just sort of poll people about really quickly tonight. One of the things that I would like to tackle right off the bat as treasurer is making sure that we have our account signers up to date. And I wanted to mention that we've never had 7 potential account signers before. I don't even really know if that's possible through.
I don't even know if I have enough paperwork.
I don't know if they have enough slots for that many, but I guess I wanted to suggest that maybe a few folks on the executive committee, just like who wanted to just abstain from that process. We don't have to have everybody on, as far as I know, as account signers. I know that
I would like to abstain.
Okay, Eddie, was that Chelsea?
This is Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea verbally, and Eddie was raising your hand.
But does the secretary need to be on there? I don't think so.
I don't think there's any obligation for the secretary to be an account signer. I of course have to be an account signer. The chairs have to be account signers. The vice chairs, I don't think have to be. I'm not sure if the vice chairs have to be, honestly, but I feel like that would be more than sufficient. And we've never really needed more than 2 even in the past. So,
I would definitely abstain from being an account signer.
Gwendolyn, I'm already an account signer, so I can take that on for our team.
Okay, thanks, Brendan. So then we have
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect. That would I think work perfectly. So then we have me, Brendan, Jeremy, and Maya.
That's fine by me.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'll try to. I was planning on just kind of maybe trying to do some paperwork relay when I get back from my trip this week. And probably will be in contact with each of you individually to show up and get your signature on some paperwork.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for shepherding that through. That was on my list as well. And I just thought today, like, I don't know if I have enough paperwork for everybody to sign on. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Could I just throw, Steve, were you about to wrap this thing up or?
No, not necessarily.
I just had one last thing with this executive committee. When do we start talking about, we talked about it a minute ago, starting to go back to like a hybrid or an in-person or something that we can actually see one another. I think it's a worthwhile conversation as an executive committee to have. And I've had it with other boards to try to sort of move forward with something.
Is it possible to talk about that next month, or do you mean sooner than next month?
I don't think it matters. I just think it's worthwhile, you know, maybe this month even just polling our members and just saying like, how comfortable do you feel, like, you know, and it's just slowly start moving there, because eventually we're going to have to get back to something.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we just at Community Cares, the consensus was that folks would like to meet remotely for at least one more month, but they were open to meeting in later this summer in August or September. So I get the feeling just from just the taking the temperature of folks out and about that they're almost ready to join, but for many folks, they'd still like to have the option of remote. But I think that that's good, Brendan, to prepare for what that might look like.
I'm bringing a boardroom table on Friday, so it has to be after Friday.
At proposed Thursday.
I also, just as a little announcement, just kind of wanted to mention that Aaron Harris and I are at least going to be collaborating with whoever else wants to get involved with the events committee, which I'm officially getting back involved with very excitedly. One of my passions that I now have more bandwidth for, but we wanted to plan for some type of a social event so that we as a new board and staff can all actually be together in person in the same place, hopefully for something fun, and trying to get that to happen. Probably, I guess July would be a long end, by no later than sometime in July. So be on the lookout for our solicitations for your availability and things like that, and feedback about what kind of fun thing people would suggest that we would like to do.
Wait, apologies, Sarah, that was you, and who would be?
Aaron Harris.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
One thing, since we're kind of winding down to the end here, that I think that the new executives should discuss is who is finalizing the agenda, just as a piece of important business that has to get accomplished.
I can do that. I've got all the time in the world at work. Nobody knows what I do on my computer. So I could format that document and nobody would ever see it.
I can help in any way if people need help. I'm not sure, Maggie, what would you, I guess, do you need help with the formatting, or what exactly are we looking for?
I guess I wanted to ask about that as well, because I wanted to make sure that if somebody wanted like the file that I've been using as the template for me to just pass that forward to whoever's going to be continuing on with that, I want to make that available. I don't know if that'll be whoever's going to be facilitating next week, or if that's going to be like two different people. Like maybe that's a way that people will split that up. I don't know, like maybe a vice chair wants to do it. Like we've got, the sky's the limit as far as who does what, right? So
yeah, I would just concur with Sarah. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think it's mission critical who does it. I just think that it needs to be clear who's going to do it, like who's in charge of it, because otherwise it's either people duplicating each other's work or no one doing it. And I know that it's been different people at different times in the past, so like it could be anybody. I don't know. I mean, I think there were times, Steve, when you just did it yourself, and I know there were times when you and I did it, and I know there were times when Sarah did it. So I mean, yeah, whatever you guys want, man. You're the new bosses. You can. I just brought it up as a piece of important business that shouldn't be overlooked as something that needs to get done.
Absolutely, thank you.
Do you think, Steve, do you think you could do it for just now until people get their feet on the ground, or their feet on
I can send out an agenda. Yeah, absolutely, Eddie. I'll send out an agenda. I'm willing to sort of I'm willing to guide us through the first meeting next week if we want, and to kind of help either whomever else would like to lead it, or at least get us through this first meeting. And then maybe that's part of the conversation is, what does this look like moving forward? Is this something that the chairs want to alternate? Is this something that we want to work on together? But at least for this first meeting, absolutely. I can plan on running it, and I can also I can plan on doing the agenda.
I mean, another option, just like pie in the sky, is somebody could write it during the executive committee meeting and just be done with it, because everything that's going to go on the agenda gets talked about at the meeting, right?
Right.
And it's not a big extra job that anybody has to do, right?
Right.
I really want to encourage us as an executive committee to step up and continue with our responsibilities of facilitating meetings and administering the agenda, because that was a job that Steve took on for many years and is really under any board structure, the purview of the board members.
Is it the chair's responsibility generally?
That I was really being sincere when I offered to do it at work.
Yeah, Jeremy wasn't joking, y'all.
Yeah.
I actually do Word and Excel all day.
That's what I was kind of getting back at is,
Yeah.
you mentioned taking on the agenda. I don't know that, because Maya left, have you guys had a chance to talk about facilitating? Or I guess that's something you can figure out within the next week, how you guys want to run that.
I believe it'll be a battle to the death if Eddie will let me use her throwing axes.
All right, well, that's how we'll do it, right?
How did you know I had throwing axes?
Oh,
You got them as a wedding gift. You brought this up
No,
before.
I told you I got them as a wedding gift.
So Jeremy, I'll send you over my Word document, and I'll probably actually meet. I don't know. Do you want to maybe just like, we can have a phone call or something sometime soon where I can just kind of go through if there's any of the other logistical stuff that you might need, and then I don't know, or maybe we can teleconference with Maya or something. Like I said, I'm gonna be gone for a little bit, so I guess it would have to be like tomorrow or next. Well, I could probably squeeze it in somewhere, but let's chat after the fact, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll plan on, Jeremy's going to draft the agenda for the meeting, and then I will help facilitate the meeting next week. And we'll see how that goes.
And if Maya wants Brendan to stand in for the battle axe throwing competition, I'm fully allowing it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Well, I guess also though, just because Maya's not here at this very relevant moment, let's maybe just pause on facilitation and make sure that we hear from both of our chairs before we decide on that.
I met with Maya.
In the same way that we've always decided on minutes at the beginning of a meeting, even if we have to do it at the beginning of the meeting.
Mm-hmm. I met with Maya last week, and we thought, at least for this very first initial meeting, she was comfortable with assistance, co-direction, whatever we wanted to call it. She was okay with that. So yeah, Maya and I, we had an opportunity to sit down and talk a little bit about what she would like to do and how she would like to do it. So
okay, that's great. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that her voice wasn't missed. But if you already talked to her, that's awesome.
And does anybody mind having the land acknowledgement as part of the opening of the meeting?
No, that's great. I think that's
Thanks
great.
for sending that out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna also use it for other groups. We just haven't had a good one, and that was a really good one. So also, I think it's really important to also start our meetings with that. And we didn't do a go around or any kind of thing for this meeting. We just dove right in. So I think I would like us to remember that there's a lot of new people, and we need to also take some time to be humans and get to know each other. The new board meeting members. But thanks for also having your ducks in a row too, Steve, and being able to have the topics for this conversation, for this agenda essentially. So
yeah, thank you. It's been exciting. We're really excited. I think the neighborhood is really buzzing, and people are, I think, anxious to kind of go. We have these great events, and over the weekend we did a really awesome building blocks event. So I think we're up and running up here, and we're excited, and we're glad to have the new board and old board as well, and all the board in between, new and old. And I'm looking forward to getting the table on Friday, Eddie.
I don't know if you're gonna say that when you find out how heavy it is.
Anybody can move it when it's nice and cold out. So, is there anything else for this evening that people would like to talk about? There may be things that and this is the first meeting, and it was pretty loose and fast, and I appreciate people's willingness to plug in as they could. And if there's anything that comes up that we missed, like, please feel free to bring it along. And I think we're in a good position for next week.
Margaret, the VNA secretary account did not work for me, so we'll just have to figure that out next. So thanks.
Let's see, did you get in? You got in, right?
I did get in, yes. So whatever magic you did, it happened and it worked.
Eddie, can you try to get in right now?
Yes, but let's let all these poor people leave.
Yes.
Okay.
You can leave, go away, and never come back. Because I think we'll just
Hi, everyone.
do the same thing for you that I did for Chelsea.
Hi,
Hi, Brendan.
Buddy.
Speaking of which, one nice addition to the agenda I thought that Sarah had put on was the parking lot.
Also, you guys, I'm sorry about that mix-up with the agenda. Like, I realized, like, I'm not sure if I was the one that was supposed to send out a link or anything, because I didn't get anything, but I don't know how that all came through, but obviously everybody got in here, so.
No, thank you, Sarah. I didn't realize until last night that was kind of going to be a hitch, and I didn't really put on it. And I think this morning I was still looking for a couple of emails, and I just sent it out. I sent my report out, but then I sent the following, the second out. Between the two of us, I think we're okay.
Is Laura on the executive committee? Wasn't like almost everyone on the executive committee?
Laura's not, and Aaron Harris and Remy and who else? Like almost everyone. But yeah, no, and Courtney.
Okay.
And also, if I could blather one more second, you guys, that was such a good meeting. I am so excited about this, like, new like, wasn't that just a different and better vibe for you guys? I don't know. I just felt, well, obviously Chelsea, my statement is irrelevant to you, but oh my gosh, it felt so collaborative to me. It felt like there were so many important, like, ideas coming together from more perspectives, and it just felt like a healthier discussion overall to me. I'm just really excited for.
I just have to say, I am terrified because my face makes all these weird faces and they're not relevant to the conversation, but I feel like it's rude not to be like, here I am, but I'm like, just like, how do you spell this? Is that really how that looks? And so I'm slightly concerned.
Chelsea and I took notes and we did it collaboratively and we were helping each other out, and Chelsea did a great job. So
oh, thank you. You are marvelous. Well, it's just the face.
I'm sure I'm like trying to spell and make my face like that too.
Oh, my face is always, I get called out at work all the time. They're like, what are you thinking?
Someone gave me the sage piece of advice, like at the beginning of pandemic, that you know, you can go into the settings and turn off your own camera so you don't have to look at your own.
Oh, I'm not looking at my face. That's gone.
And then I know.
I didn't do that. Man, that would have saved me less stress.
But I definitely have the same problem. But, well, anyway, thanks so much, everybody. I loved that meeting, and I am looking forward to next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Eddie, can I snag you for a second?
Yeah.
So what happens to the document now?
We send it to Steve.
Okay.
And then
we should try to get it into the VNA secretary account.
Well, I'm looking at the secretary account,
cool.
But I also.
Maybe Margaret can give us a quick rundown, because what I did is I just took the document and made a template and made a copy, so it's just the document. It's
well, what I did was vomited just all over the whole entire document.
Right, that's good. So that's fine. I didn't like ruin the template or anything. We just need to put that document into the VNA secretary Google account, and I'm having trouble signing in, if that makes sense.
It does.
Chelsea, this is very much the people's board. Like, we're all here to, we got your back on this. None of us are pros, so, take deep breaths and when I was first hired here, it was all property managers, and it was a pretty obnoxious board, and this is much more reflective of the community. And I think
my biggest complaint is Jeremy's last name. It's just not my favorite.
Just Jeremy T for records, that's what I say. I'm not sure if I have to be here or if I can exit and you all can continue or whatever is going on here.
Yeah, I think you can go. It'd be nice if Maggie, if you can hang out for a little bit so we can just kind of get the notes sent to the right person. I just so goodbye, Steve.
Right, here
if you leave though, will it kill us? Will it kill us?
I think it'll just assign a new host.
Okay.
I think, but we'll find out. I'm pretty sure because
I think that my options are end meeting for all or leave meeting. So
leave. I got excited.
Well, I'm going to assign a new host, Eddie DeGrasse, so you enjoy yourself.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Still here. Okay. So I think the big key is the thing that Eddie did to always make a copy, because unlike a Word document where you start typing something and then you can save it as a different version, when you're working with a Google document, you're editing the document. There is no save it later, saving it as you go, right? So step one is find the thing you want to use, whether it's making an agenda or making minutes, and make a copy of it. And second thing is to, like Eddie's talking about, sharing it. So you can share it, and this is an operation that's up in the top. It's a big blue
so
up in the
Eddie shared the document with me.
Yes, and so when you share, and there's a setting, and even below that blue square that's share, there's editing mode. So there's editing, suggesting, and viewing. So this is what I would suggest. When you guys are writing together, you're editing.
Yes.
And then when you send it out, I would send it as suggesting. So change the document from an editing document to a suggesting document. And then when that goes out to the board, if people see errors, they can make a suggestion to change it, but they're not actually changing the document. And then right before the meeting, you can review the suggestions and make those changes if they're appropriate. And then when you're done, and you're kind of like that final step of archiving the document of like, here's the official minutes and they're done and they've been approved at the meeting, change it to a viewing document so it doesn't accidentally get changed or edited or written or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does.
And in sharing, there's two ways you can share it. You can share the document by having it emailed directly to specific people.
Yes.
Or you can use a link. It'll generate a link that you can then stick in an email, and anybody who gets the link can then either edit, suggest, or view, depending on how you set those it out. So, yeah. Does that sound too confusing, or?
No, it doesn't. The sharing, all those aspects made sense to me. I don't know if Eddie has questions.
They're pretty easy. Like, I get it that they're like kind of. It seems like a lot of different options, but when you get into the menus, it's pretty user friendly. It's not like it'd be like, oh, that's the spot where I do this choice, or that's the spot where I do the other choice.
I am not as familiar. Like, I use my phone for everything. I have this laptop that I haven't used in 4 years, and so far it's kind of working out. To share it, well, Eddie, are we happy with how everything looks, and we call that good? And
I think it's good. Yeah, maybe one more read over real quick, but it should be fine.
Okay, so once we read over, where exactly am I saving it to? Is there a specific?
You don't have to save it because it's a document from the VNA drive. It should just go back to the VNA drive.
Oh.
You want to check the VNA
on a computer? It's saved like on the Google Cloud.
I would check the VNA account. Are you able to sign into it? Because I wasn't, because it said please look at your iPhone. And I'm like,
yep, that was my question, because I don't think this document is with the VNA account. I think it's
I just
template.
shared it I just shared it with the VNA account. So when you open the VNA Gmail account, it should show that a document was shared with you. So are you able to open the VNA Secretary account? That would be the first step.
I am looking at the VNA Gmail. Yes.
Did it say a document has been shared with you from Eddie?
I should.
It says an invitation to edit. Yes, that you have shared
so
with me.
Click on that.
Okay.
And that should open it. And then I think, would that then make it, Margaret, would that then make it in the VNA account? Or are you in it?
It says,
No, not tablet. No tablet yet. Sorry, guys.
oh, you're good.
Just watched Raya on the Last Dragon for the first time today.
Ooh, we were watching that.
Were you? Yeah, I was like, go watch Raya and the Dragon. It was a great job. No, we're almost done. Hold on. We are checking in the VNA account to see if it showed up, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We will refresh it.
I think when you open it, it goes into that account's Google Drive.
That is one I don't totally know how to. I have not. That's a tech piece I have not totally figured out yet.
Is there a way we can stop recording?
Yeah, I wish we could. I don't know. I'm the host. How do I stop?
Yes, there is, but it depends on who's.
I'm the host. There, I did it.
Oh, so you can turn it off. Nice.
Wait.
Now we
no,
can
I
say all
didn't.
the swear words.